Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something we all rely on but rarely think about: financial trust. You know, that invisible promise that your money is safe. But what happens when that trust gets broken? Let's get right into it. Seriously, think about it. Every time you send money to your loved ones, you're placing your faith in a system you can't really see. So, who's actually watching over that system to make sure everything stays on the straight and narrow? Well, our story today kicks off with a company called Omda Exchange. Now, if you're in the UAE, you might have known the name. They were a pretty prominent remittance service, a familiar face for a lot of people sending money abroad. But then, in late 2023, everything changed. Suddenly, the Central Bank of the UAE, or the CBUAE, stepped in and took some very decisive action. And look, this wasn't just some minor slap on the wrist. We're talking about a complete and total shutdown. And with that shutdown came a pretty hefty price tag, a financial penalty of 10 million dirhams. A number that big isn't just a fine, it's a massive statement. It tells you just how serious the situation was. The regulators' moves were incredibly swift and, frankly, comprehensive. First, boom, they revoked Omda Exchange's license. Then they wiped its name from the official register of companies. And finally, they hit them with that huge financial penalty. In just 3 steps, the company was, for all intents and purposes, done. Okay, so we know what happened. But the much bigger, more interesting question is, why? What could possibly lead a country's central bank to bring the hammer down so hard? Right, because a decision like this doesn't just come out of nowhere. It came after some really detailed examinations by the CBUAE's supervisory teams. And what they found, well, it was clearly very concerning. The investigation basically uncovered this whole pattern of serious problems. We're talking significant breaches of financial laws and, this is the big one, major shortfalls in their anti-money laundering standards. In simple terms, that means they just weren't doing a good enough job to stop their services from being used to move dirty money. The CBUAE was very clear. These weren't little oopsies. These were violations that threatened the integrity of the whole financial system. And this quote from the CBUAE really just says it all, doesn't it? Their job, in their own words, is to maintain transparency and integrity and safeguard the UAE financial system. So taking this action wasn't just an option, it was them doing exactly what they're supposed to do. This whole thing boils down to a concept called regulatory compliance. It sounds a bit like corporate jargon, I know, but think of it as a protective shield. It's the rule book that financial companies absolutely have to follow to prevent things like fraud and to protect not just the big system, but also, your money. And on that front, Omda Exchange apparently failed. Okay, so a company broke the rules and they got caught. Fair enough. But what does any of this high-level stuff have to do with you and me, the person just trying to send some money home? What's the so what for your wallet? Well, the impact on you is actually incredibly positive. See, this whole episode isn't just about punishing one bad apple. It's about sending a clear message to the entire industry that every single dirham you hand over has to be kept safe and secure. A really good way to picture the central bank is as this constant watchful eye. It's always scanning the market, looking for any cracks or weaknesses, and stepping in to fix them before they can cause any real harm to people like us. So what does that mean for you directly? Well, for starters, when they prune the market of these non-compliant players, it gives all of us higher confidence in the exchanges that are left. Second, it reduces your personal risk. Stricter rules mean less chance of scams or someone misusing your hard-earned cash. And finally, this kind of strong enforcement keeps the UAE's reputation solid on the world stage, which means better, more reliable services for you in the long run. So let's zoom out for a second, because an event like this doesn't just happen in a bubble. It's actually a piece of a much larger strategy, one aimed at maintaining trust in the UAE's financial system, not just here at home, but all around the world. And you should know, this is definitely not a one-off. The CBUAE has been consistently taking action against companies that don't follow the rules. It sends a very clear signal that the regulations are not optional. And the real goal here isn't just to punish bad behavior after it happens, but to prevent it from happening in the first place. What's really important is that this tough on compliance strategy has global implications. It aligns the UAE with the highest international standards, the kind set by groups like the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. And that's basically the world's top watchdog for financial crime. Meeting their standards is absolutely crucial for being a trusted player in the global economy. So the next time you go to send money, just remember that there's this complex system of rules and oversight working silently in the background. That watchful eye we've been talking about is always active, protecting the system and ultimately protecting the money you've worked so hard for. Which leaves us with a final thought. In a world this connected, is that silent guardianship more important than ever? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.